What is happening, super fans? You're listening to Behind the Mask, the show where we chat with your favorite superhero fiction authors about the worlds and the heroes that they are writing. Behind the Mask is brought to you by superherofiction.com, the world's largest website dedicated to superhero fiction. I'm your host, Franklin Kendrick, and today on the show, I am excited to be talking with author Jamie Hawke. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Thanks for having me. How's it going?
It's going good. How are things in your world?
Amazing.
Good. Good
Always
to hear.
phenomenal, however you want to say it. Yeah. Yeah, I'm having fun.
Excellent.
I'm released a few books recently. I just finished a screenplay today that I sent off to my buddy to read and give notes on, and then I'm sending it to the producer on Monday. So that's exciting. And it's a nice semi-warm, semi-cold day in California, which is always a plus.
Oh, yeah. Excellent. Well, my first question for you in my list of questions is, when you're not Jamie Hawke behind the keyboard superhero fiction author, who are you out in the real world? Do you have sort of a secret identity?
It's not so secret. All of my readers know that I also write as Sloan whenever I'm not doing adult stuff. Or I also have a few other things, like J.D. Stone is my thriller pen name, so I just have one book out as that, more planned. But I'm also not really rushing them. I'm kind of thinking what I'm aiming for right now is doing a more movie targeted approach. So as I get people in Hollywood interested in things, then I start writing them as both screenplay and movie. So, for example, that one that's on there now, this current producer who we're making some stuff with, once those ones are done, we've talked about adapting it to take place in Laos. Right now it's set in Thailand, but we have more reasons why we could film it in Laos. So that's why that's there. And then I have a couple others that I'm like, ooh, if I could do this one. One's set in France, so I don't know how soon that would be possible to be done,
Yes.
Maybe I'll wait till I can direct so I can take off to South France for like 3 months and film it myself. That'd be nice.
Yeah.
So that's who I am. I'm a screenwriter, video game writer. People know probably that I worked on Game of Thrones, Tales from the Borderlands, Walking Dead, Minecraft at Telltale, and then I recently did something called Rival Peak and some other projects, all under my real self. They don't have a lot of mutilation or sexy times, although some of those properties kind of do. So
Depending on, the corner.
Yeah. We try to get some of that stuff in, like Game of Thrones. Like, it was fun because you're in the studio and you have the artists doing all the nudie scenes, and then of course the hammer comes down and they say, "Sorry, those are all cut from the game," and you're like, "No, they're so great," and the artist put so much effort into it. But yeah, they didn't want to set that precedent, I guess.
Was that the Game of Thrones that was on like the PS3, or was that?
I don't know. It was computer, probably
the
PS3
computer animated one.
It's I don't know. It's Telltale, whatever that was. It's so the Telltale games are all very story based. Mm-hmm. They're all very like quick time events, and then mostly about choosing what you're going to say as a character. So mm-hmm. choice based. Yeah. So that's the one. It wasn't the one that was. I think you're thinking of the one that was by some other studio, like in France or somewhere. I forget. That was more of an actual RPG game, which I liked, but it got pretty horrible reviews for some reason.
Yeah, it was way too ambitious. I gotta say, the Telltale one, because I have played that one. I played both of them, but I didn't make it so far in the RPG one. But the Telltale one, so stressful and very scary to play, because you're like, man, everything is like, it's gonna die if I choose the wrong thing, and of course you always do. So
that's what's fun about those. What surprised me was that a lot of the people working on it had no knowledge of the other game. I'm like, you're right, you're working on a Game of Thrones game and you don't even know there's another one out there. And then a lot of them hadn't even read Game of Thrones, the books. And I'm like, you're killing me. Killing me. So,
I'm the outsider here, but I'm really the insider.
What's funny is you could tell they'd had conversations because, spoiler alert, kind of like they wrote Daenerys probably more how the show knew Daenerys was going versus how Daenerys was portrayed in the books.
Oh, yeah. There's huge difference.
Video game. In my opinion, she came across as this kind of like spiteful, mean person. And so I'm playing the game and I've read the books. I'm like, who is this? This isn't the same person. And then you see what the show does and you're like, oh, okay, I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. So they were really ahead of the time.
Like I said, I think a lot of those people hadn't read the books. And since they're going off of talks with showrunners, and it was mostly based on the HBO show more than it was the books. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I'm getting off track.
Well, it's all interesting. I mean, it's all interesting stuff. I will talk forever about nerd geek culture and everything. But I will ask the next question so I don't go too long. But since you mentioned that you write other superhero stuff under your actual name, for this sort of flavor of superhero fiction, what got you into wanting to write in that space way back when you started?
Like just any superheroes in general, or
Uh, well, like I mean, for under your Jamie Hawke stuff, you write sort of like I want to. I mean, I haven't delved in too far, but I mean, it's very like, is it like harem type
yeah,
plot stuff?
very all adult centered, very
Adult centered. These are for like the guys that are like, just do what the studios will not do, basically.
kind of, but not really. So there was some inspiration there. So just on the topic of the harem stuff, and some people know this about me, and if you've read my books, you probably already know this, and I think it's why I don't get as many readers as some of the other authors in that genre. I looked at some of these books and I thought some of this is disgusting. Like they're just so demeaning to women, and it's kind of, you know. And I thought, hey, it's the main concept is a guy with multiple lovers. Why does that have to be sexist? Why does it have to degrade anybody? And so I said, well, I'm going to start writing in that genre, and I'm going to do it the way that I want to do it, so that it can be respectful, that it can still be fun. Like there's nothing wrong with. I mean, I don't do it, and it's not my style, but I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with a story that involves a guy with multiple women if they're all down with it and they're all part of it and they're not slaves and they're not forced against their will by some magical whatever you have it. So that was kind of my inspiration for getting involved in that genre, is I wanted to try doing a story that would not offend me and, you know, would actually excite me, because I love writing. If you've seen my other books, I'm a big fan of writing like the badass female heroine. And so this is just a story that ends up having like 10 badass female heroines, and they all happen to have one male person who's part of the team. Usually you'll see, like in X Heroes, Charm or maybe even Twitch are really the leaders of that group. Charm's more of the decider of who gets to join the team, and Twitch is kind of like the shot caller. And of course, the male is the POC, so he still has a lot of, you know, say in what goes on. But it's kind of because they let him, you know, because there are a lot more badass than he is at the beginning. He takes on, you know, he's almost godlike by the 8th book. But along the way, you know, he's earned his point of respect and leadership. He wasn't just like, I'm a man, so therefore I got to tell you what to do. And some guys like that style of book a lot more, you know, those other ones. And so there's certain books out there that get a lot of reads because it has slavery and domination and bullshit.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of that. I mean, I haven't read a lot of that in like the fiction world, but like you see a lot of this genre is like super popular in like animes and stuff. Mm-hmm. So it can be, like you say, it can be done like tastefully, but then it's like, there's different levels of this audience that's like, some of them really just want to be in control of everybody and make them do stuff. And it's like, it doesn't have to be like that, but
and I don't mean to offend anybody, but I mean, if you're already reading my books, you probably know that about me. And if you aren't reading them and don't like what I'm saying, you're probably not going to like my books. So, hey,
there's tons more stuff out there to check out if you're just not the
superhero part of it.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say it is an interesting thing, because I mean, it's sort of like you don't see that a lot. It's sort of like one pair of characters gets together, and then once that's done, that's it, and they do the typical like move on and like, do we get married? Do we have marriage fights? It's like, okay, but yours is like not like that at all. So I was just curious, how did you decide, like, I'm going to do this with superheroes, as opposed to a lot of these that I've seen are like straight up fantasy or like weird Conan the Barbarian style stuff.
And I've done some of those too. But the way that, well, what excited me about this too, in that sense, was this idea that you can have multiple romance stories, but still have the one point of view protagonist. You know, you don't have to switch to a different point of view, different character. You have new romances. And then they're getting more complicated because you have all these other people as part of it, you know, and different personalities. And so I thought that was a lot of fun because, you can go for 8 books and then you're still meeting new characters who are like, are they part of the romance? Are they not? And occasionally you have characters who are just like, what's this? You're hot. Let's do it, which is kind of ridiculous. But if it fits the character, sure. I've met people like that in real life. Why not have it in fiction? And then you have other characters who are like, no, you are disgusting. And then maybe 3 books later, they're like, all right. You know what I mean? So that's kind of exciting and fun. It kind of is also like an autobiography in a sense, right? Where it's you get and I won't say this is me at all, but I'm saying some authors might be able to just tell all the stories of the different relationships in their life and portray that, but just have it with one character with, these multiple women at the same time instead of what might have really happened. Not saying anything, just saying that could be a case.
Yeah, they all the loves of the past have to learn to get along or not.
Yeah. It's a weird fantasy, huh? So superheroes, when I was a kid, I've told this story before, maybe to you guys, I don't know. But me and my buddy, when we were like 11, I don't know where this came from, but I was drawing comics and whatnot, and we were little pervs. He would steal the Playboy channel, or you would watch it between digital, whatever, like the pixelated, and then he would order it, and his mom would get mad at him 3 months later when she got the bill, and so one day we were like, let's draw comics that are like, insane superheroes using sexual superpowers and stuff. And so I have these old drawings lying around somewhere in his house, probably, that he always meant to blackmail me with. And then one day I was like, wait a second, those were awesome. Why don't I do that? But it's part of what I'm writing, because I'm already writing books and fiction and having fun with it. So it kind of originated when I was like 11 or 12. My adolescent mind knew what I was going to do for a living somehow. And then there's always just the love of superheroes. I loved reading the X-Men stories. And then when I was at Telltale, we were doing stories that had superheroistic aspects to them, and yeah, I think it all kind of came together. Oh, and then I was looking at the lit RPG space and thinking about that, because, like Super X Heroes kind of falls in there. It's more game lit. It's like light lit RPG, where I don't go into like stat tables and everything like that, but there's definitely the stats in there as part of the story. And he goes up lots of levels, and he gets to use different skill trees and makes the choices of what skill tree he's going to pursue and all that. And a few of my other books do things like that in different ways. Like the Stone Cold Mage series, he gets magic, and then, not knowing how to handle the magic, he creates like a screen for himself so that he can kind of have a way to mix and meld the different levels of magic that he's now able to access. Fun things like that, because it just makes sense. If you suddenly had magic and you didn't know what to do with it, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. So anyway, so that's what got into the superhero stuff. And then how it became kind of a lit RPG thing was, I love the idea of playing with a character who can get different powers. And I looked at it as like a color wheel when you start mixing the different colors. But then like you get more powers as you go, and they mix together. And then as you, in this story specifically, the X Heroes series, I had a character who gave him this suit that would help him to kind of see how to manipulate the use of powers and grow stronger, and kind of like Spider-Man. Did you ever see Homecoming? I think it was. No,
one of them.
I think
it was very electronic. It was like the electronic style, like mechanical suit that was like giving him all the stats and things.
He wasn't allowed. He, in theory, wasn't allowed to use all of its abilities until he was more trusted with it, until he learned how to use it. So that was kind of like a leveling up system. But then he just like broke it, I think, and was able to use it all at once, maybe. I don't know. But
yeah, so he was able to unlock things before he was capable of using them, basically. Before he leveled up.
But I like to liken this stuff to that for people who don't understand the lit RPG concept or what I'm doing in these books. It's very similar.
So you said the superhero series with the lit RPG. That is the Super X. What is it called? Sorry.
Super X Heroes, and also Super X Gods. And then I did one called Psycho Bitches, and they're all part of the same universe, and they all meet each other, and they all go off and fight wars together. And there's a couple other ones that tie in also, but I don't want to spoil it.
Don't spoil it. So for that sort of thing, did you sort of did you have to plan it out way ahead, or how do you like embark on something with all of that detail inside of it?
Yeah. So the first book I just started, I just was inspired. I just started writing it, and I just started flowing. And then me and a buddy, we'd been talking about making the dual series where like he would write from a cousin's point of view or a brother's point of view or something. I think it was a cousin at that point. And I would write this one, and then we would have them kind of going down to this big branching universe. And we were thinking, let's bring other authors and they can do some stories too. And it'll all be kind of this cool MMO style thing, right? This big, massive multiplayer online, but books instead of a video game. It was a really grand idea, except for he decided to just write his own thing. He did the same thing kind of that he was planning, but just ended up writing something else entirely. And then we didn't connect him. So I was kind of pissed about that. So when I was writing my book, I was like, well, I'm still going to do it because I'm excited. But I ended up just doing it all myself. So I ended up then doing the X God series, which is the brother story. And I ended up going off and doing all those other spinoffs because it was already in my mind and I'd already been planning it out and thinking about all these things. And so outlining, I definitely had to outline the brother's story and then points where it would start intersecting. But I'm also largely a discovery writer, so a lot of times what I would do is I would just make sure I take really good notes in an Excel doc. So once things start coming together, I'd put down the notes here, and then that would inspire stories for the other book, and I would start keeping an outline for the next book over here. And as I'm writing that one, then it would start like leapfrogging or whatever, back and forth a little bit too, and just getting bigger and bigger and more ideas coming. Yeah, so I definitely didn't do like a grand scheme from day one type thing, but I'm I'm always outlining the next chapters and then having a very high level, like one paragraph outline of other things.
Excellent. I feel like it's like the best of both worlds, where you're not bored because you don't know the whole thing, but you have like just enough of a roadmap to be like, okay, I'm on course, and then you can figure out where to go from there.
I've discovered I'm not a very creative outliner, but I'm a creative writer, if that makes sense. So when I outline, it's kind of like boring, but when I start writing, it's like, oh, subvert expectations. Yeah. And then, yeah.
Oh yeah. For all the listeners out there, I feel like I always end up delving in and varying degrees with everybody about like, what is your writing process? How do you do it? And there really is no one size fits all. So like, if you're out there listening and you're curious how to go about it, figure out what works for you, and you can pick and choose, and there's no real rules. The only real thing is your end product. And if it lives up to what you want it to be and what the audience is wanting, then you succeeded. And it doesn't really matter how it came to be. But I'm always curious because I always outline things, and then sometimes I'm like, even with the outline, this is going to change when I get to the halfway point.
Yeah, and that's why I say I like to do that high level outline, and then like I like to outline the next 2 or 3 chapters, knowing that they could change if it comes down to it. It's all you got to give precedence to the story, and if the story is just better than what you originally thought it was going to be, then go that way.
Absolutely. So do you want to give sort of a spotlight on a handful of your heroes for this universe, and maybe who they are and what their powers are?
Sure. If I can remember. I do a really bad job about remembering things. So I already mentioned the main character, who we call Breaker. His real name is something like Chad, but we never use that. So he's the one who shows up. So he's basically gets accused of killing somebody who is kind of his brother's fault, but not really, and goes to jail and then is put on death row. And then while he's on his way to death row stuff, his bus gets attacked and blah, 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 blah. As he's on the moment of death, he's pulled into this alternate universe. So it's kind of an isekai thing.
Ooh.
And so he's the one who shows up, and then his powers ends up being this color wheel thing that I was already mentioning, where he gets powers. He can get them multiple ways. Basically, have you seen It Follows, the horror movie? It's a horror movie where like if you have sex with somebody, then you get the demon thing that's going to kill you. So it's kind of like that.
Yes.
But so basically, he can get superpowers by blood transfusion or other bodily fluids. And so, he could cut somebody and cut himself and do like a blood pact, and that would get him their powers, or he can have sex with them.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's fun. And but what happens is the powers don't always come through exactly as that person has them. It's usually like a mutated version of that, because you didn't take all their blood, you didn't directly transfuse it 100%. And if you have other powers, it might meld in weird ways, so you get the blue and yellow mixed green. So that's his superpower, and you find out later there's a little more to it than just that, and why the reasons are behind all that, like who his parents are and everything. They're not Earthlings. Spoiler. And then same X-Gods is similar because it's the brother, but he has a different kind of power where he can absorb attacks that hit him. I think lots of superheroes have that power. So basically something comes at you and you can turn that power into your fist and that kind of stuff. But the characters, some of the main characters are like Twitch. Twitch is one of the main characters from the first book. She's the second one we introduced to you two, I think, from the hero side. And she has kind of an alter reality power, which, like WandaVision, but if WandaVision was using code and screens around her. So it's kind of ties more into that lit RPG side where she actually has screens and can adjust stats and stuff. But she's paranoid because she was using that to help the good guys a long time ago and made a whole planet disappear through a black hole. So she's kind of scared to use too much of her powers. So limited in that sense. And then there's Charm, who's the main one that everybody loves. She's a fox girl. So she has like a fox tail and fox ears. And then she has a charm ability. So basically that's where she gets her name. She started off as a space pirate a long time ago, and then la da da, got involved in this stuff, and I can't spoil it. There's a whole book that's just about her. It's a prequel, and it kind of spoils the whole situation of how she got here. It's cool. It's badass. And she, so her charms can do different things. She has different colors that she can blow out, and like one will make people confused and maybe attack their own side for a little while until it wears off. One will make you more susceptible to whatever she's saying, so maybe kind of like mind control. Others will make you just fall asleep or something, but they always affect her a little bit too. Mm-hmm. So if she uses it on you, it's also going to affect her, which is the weakness. So I like having the weaknesses associated with powers. It makes it more fun, especially as a writer, because then you can assign things to these, and you can have it be where if she used something to make you more friendly, then it'll make her suddenly more friendly. Mm-hmm. Which is kind of a situation to write in there. So sometimes people ask like why she's doing certain things early on in the book that they feel are a little inappropriate or something, and it's like, well, she just did this charm to this guy, and so it's kind of like she just got him drunk and got herself drunk at the same time, and like it's never good to get people drunk to do things, but sometimes it happens, that kind of situation. Yes. Yeah, and then it goes on and on. Ezra is a bounty hunter who's he's in Psycho Bitches. He's the main guy in that one, and he I forget what his exact powers are. Oh no, he's not an empath. Is that the word?
So you can feel their emotions. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's a bounty hunter, so like he's like super good at his aim or something like that. I forget. It's been a while since I've read my own books and written those. It was like 2 years.
You can sense the guilt.
Yeah. And so he partners up with some pretty cool ladies, like Sherry is one of them, and what is her superpower? I'm so bad at this. Anyway, she has like a sword with this little bear that hangs off, and she thinks she can talk to the bear, and she's just fun. She's like not Margot Robbie, but you know what I mean. Who's the crazy lady?
Oh, is it Katana? What's her name?
Any of these crazy. She's one of these crazy people, like Tank Girl, like those ones from League of Legends and whatnot. So yeah. Yes. So I'm a big fan of those kind of characters. Any others that I feel like I should call out necessarily? I'm thinking Threed is a fun one. I definitely want to mention Threed, and here's why. She's one of the ladies who partners up with Drew, who's the brother, the ex-Gods guy, and her main superpower is just that she can make 3 of herself. So like she splits off, one of those, but she also has this like poison, like gas thing that she can make come out of her, and does, poisons people. But why I mention her right now is because in an anthology coming out very shortly, we have her. This is a big spoiler, I guess, in a way. But anyway, we have her son, and her son's the main character of the short story that I did for the anthology. His name is Ford. Because he Threed Ford, so he gets a similar power where he can make 4 of himself, but does other stuff as well. And yes, so anyway, the Threed part also comes in fun for other situations, as you can imagine.
Oh yes. So what about the villains? Do you have like a roster of villains spread across these series?
Sure. Well, Ranger's like one of the main ones. It's I'm just bad at remembering what their powers are sometimes. There's also villains who might not always be villains. Those ones are kind of fun. But yeah, Ranger is like one of the main ones. So we're making a board game based off of this right now, where the artist, it's hard finding artists who can do good board game art for some reason. I don't understand why. Maybe I'm just bad at conveying what my vision is. I don't know for that. But anyway, I've tried like 3 board game artists now so far, and they're all lacking. But anyway, we're making a board game, and the main bad guys of that, the main neutrals of that, I guess I should say, they're kind of like, or we're calling them forces of nature, where like they come in and wreak havoc because they're too powerful to really take on. And one's a bad guy, and one's kind of, well, I don't want to spoil it. I'll just say kind of. And so there's Ranger, and then there's the Blue Lady, and the Blue Lady is one of these. She's kind of like Magneto in a way, like she manipulates metal. But she does so with this weird blue force that acts as like an energy shield that allows her to move through this twisted metal and does all these things. She's called the Blue Lady for now, if you've only read book 1 or haven't read book 1 yet. And then the super villains was one called Chains, who's basically a woman who, in a similar way, manipulates metal, but only in, like, with these chains, and she can create these little metal bots things. Those two are kind of too similar. Yeah, there's a bunch of other ones, but I'm blanking on most of them right now.
That's a good enough. That's a good number, I think. That's enough to tease for whoever is out there. If you haven't read all of the books, then you get a small taste of what there is. What about
Yeah, like, a lot of times it's more that they're dealing with the big fights of not necessarily one super villain. Like I don't do that as much. I think, for example, in Psycho Bitches, the main deal there he's dealing with it. So he's I'll spoil the beginning. He finds out that he's on the wrong side. That he's delivering these prisoners to this planet where there's like a prison. It's a prison planet basically, similar to my
Mhm.
planet Kill. It's a spin-off of that called Abaddon, and he's delivering them there only to find out that everything gets attacked. His ship gets blown up. He's stuck, and while he's there, he starts finding out that he's on the wrong side, and that all the people who are owning this prison planet, this prison that he's taking them to, are the real bad guys, and he has to stop them to help save his crew. He finds like a whole underground testing thing where they're doing weird testing on superheroes and stealing their powers and using them to make their own supervillains. And so he has to take them out and try to escape, and then team up with my other crews to go wreak havoc on other bad guys. Similarly, there's a whole super alien race type thing that's attacking the Citadel, which is where the superheroes are out in space, and that's one of their big enemies. Is they have to try to take down that group. So there's like a leader of them. I forget the name of him right now. He basically uses like some huge mech robot suit thing that has some of these superpowers imbued into it with the fancy crystal type things, and they have to defeat him. So it's usually more about like the corporation, I guess, and the government that they're trying to take down.
Yeah.
It always has an individual, but it's not like, the Magneto that we have to kill, aside from Ranger, really.
Yeah, it's more like the organization.
Yeah.
Excellent.
There's one in book 3, I think it is, where they have to go to the pyramids of I forget the name of it. The pyramids anyway, and there's like this whole cool underground thing where they're dealing with. It's kind of like a Minecraft almost feeling. Yeah. Minecraft for adults.
Yes. So for the world that your series takes place in, you mentioned space, and there's a bunch of different planets.
Mhm.
Is there a way to like give us sort of like an overview of like clearly it's all like fantasy sci-fi, like how do you, I don't know, I'm trying to think because my question is like worded as if you haven't spoken about it at all. Like how did you come up with like the universe that this all takes place in, and how do you decide what to add and like what direction it goes in?
Yeah. I don't know.
It just came like a spark.
Yeah. Well, because the original version was just that guy on the space station, the isekai thing, where he gets pulled into the space. Actually, it's a space prison ship, and everything going crazy from there. And then it all started evolving and unraveling. Some of it actually ties into my Sloan books that I did with some buddies. That was called the Syndicate Wars. So there's a character named Hadrian, and so he's the one who kind of operates the Citadel at this point. But I don't think the Citadel is ever mentioned in those books. This is the character. I think I'm trying to remember. Anyway, so it kind of started spinning out where I just started connecting things, and then from there, as I made connections, more things started happening. So that's when it was like, what are they dealing with? What's the battle that the Citadel is really dealing with, aside from Ranger? And then who does Ranger answer to? And then it ended up connecting to Abaddon and Earth, because Abaddon and Planet Kill are Earth based. They don't technically know that aliens exist, because Earth had this whole thing where they wiped people's minds and erased it all from history at one point, and now they have this whole system where they're trying to keep everybody suppressed. So at some point you find out, big spoiler here, close your ears if you don't want to hear it for about 5 seconds, that Ranger is actually one of these people made from that system, and he was like an Earther at one point, and all that jazz. So yeah, it all just kind of started unraveling, I guess. I'm a big unraveler, like pull this thread, oh, where's that going, whoa.
Yeah. So the Earth, is it like our Earth, just like
yeah,
tweaked?
but in the future.
Coolness.
Quite a ways in the future. There's one book called Super's Ex Succubus that is 100% on Earth, and it's an Earther. It's a character who driving down on the street and sees a car accident or gets in a car accident, one of the two, and the succubus is one of the characters in the truck that's been in a car accident, and he's like, what the hell are you? So she's actually like an alien that resembles a succubus, and then the whole lore that goes into a lot of this and a lot of mythology that I have in the books ties into where we get our mythology. So the idea being that some of her race came down to Earth at one point, like 1,000 or 2,000 years ago, and then that's kind of where the legend of the succubus came from. and more, same idea. We have a bunch of characters who might have been Egyptian gods at one point, but then went back up into space and said, forget this. And other things that tie into that are kind of similar, where you can actually pass on the moniker and the power. Like there's ways that you can kill certain characters and take on their powers, and then you become, if you want, you take on that name as well and become the new whatever. So, yeah. Crazy. I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah, it's our Earth, just in the future. Yeah. Asterisk? Did I say asterisk there?
Sometimes
happening, but
sometimes there isn't really there is no one moment. Like when I came up with some of the questions, I was just kind of thinking of how would I answer this? But then really sometimes even myself, I'm like, there is no real overall, it just is as comes to you as it comes to you. And then even though you're the creator, you're kind of just going along for the ride, and it just reveals itself to you. So that's the fun part.
In some of these books, like the Lost Pirates books, they change history, and things have transformed. And in some of the books, they're aware of the other books as stories, as books, but there's reasoning that is explained. I think it's explained in the Lost Pirates book 3 or 4, why that is, along with Myth Protector. I think they go into a little bit of that. So it's weird because one of them will be reading a book about charm, and then spoiler, quick, close your ears, 10 seconds, and then they'll later join the charm universe and be interacting with these characters, and it's what the fuck? So you could say that I just messed it all up, or you could say that I'm a genius, depending on which way you want to go. Yeah.
Hey.
I accept your answer. I was just having fun. Let's just be honest. As an author, I think the most important thing is to have fun with stories and make sure that they're realistic to the characters and make sure that they come from the heart, So if you're reading a book and it's just a bunch of people punching each other, then it's kind of lame. As long as it's coming from a position of, being true to the characters and somewhere in the author's heart telling these stories that you can sit there and either cry or laugh with, then I think that's what's important.
Definitely.
It doesn't have to stick to the exact Earth rules of how a dragon flies in space or something.
Yes. Well, I mean, there's so much. I feel like the mainstream entertainment world has sort of watered down a lot of genres. Partly probably because it's being controlled and funneled through a small percentage of people that are making decisions, but also because we're so run by visual media. So there is novel and indie publishing and all that, we can do whatever we want. We're not constrained by a budget. Why be held back?
Do this or that, and some gatekeepers saying, no, that's not the way it works. I've dealt with that a lot, where a lot of the gatekeepers want, certain kind of prose that the reader might not find fun. And it's well, I want the reader to have fun, so I'm not going to write that way. Because if I read that, I'd be bored and fall,
Yeah, a lot of the stuff that is memorable is the personality, and some of the big books that everyone tries to throw my way, it's the personality is just stripped away, and I don't like it. I want if I read a Jamie Hawke book, I want the voice and I want the characters and stuff.
Yeah, the character. So, some books people like because there's a cool idea or something, right? And I hope some of mine have cool ideas, but I don't think it's ever because it's a cool idea and that's why I wrote it. It's more because I could fall in love with the characters. Because if it's just a cool idea, it'll end up taking me 5 years and I'll never get the book done. Because I'll just...
Yes.
So then you have to find what the cool characters are around that idea, I guess, and then start exploring it from the characters. Well, I do.
Absolutely.
Not everybody.
The characters, yeah. I mean, if the characters aren't engaging, then it's going to be just a dry well.
Yeah. And why is that cool idea relevant to them or interesting to them or affecting them in a horrible way that makes them all have to kill a bunch of people? Yeah.
Let me ask you my next question, which is you must have some sort of inspiration as you find your way through the constantly expanding world of your books. Can you talk about one or two things that you draw inspiration from?
For sure, movies. Like I mentioned, I'm doing the screenplay stuff, and I love movies. I think that's where I started with the story writing to begin with, was a love of movies. Princess Bride, Gladiator, Braveheart. You know, these are ones that you could watch 1,000 times and never get bored of, and always be 100% just as
Mhm.
inspired as the last time. And then there's some books that do that for me as well, like the Game of Thrones books. I loved those are what got me started writing in the first place. I loved them, and I was waiting for the next one, and I was like, well, why don't I try to writing something on my own? But nowadays, what I do a lot is I'm watching a lot of horror movies, which I'm not super. I wasn't traditionally super into horror, except for I found a lot of really good ones lately, and so now I think I have to revise that. I'm not into certain types of horror. Like I hated Midsummer. Is that how you say that? Whatever.
Oh, it's yeah, it's so like it's too pretentious.
Yeah, too
Like,
pretentious, too boring, too nothing. It just, and no offense if people liked it. That's your story. That's you like. You know, everybody has their taste. But and then like horror that's just all about like cutting people open and stuff. I'm like, I don't want to see that. I have kids. I don't want to think
mm,
about these things. Movies where kids disappear or get hurt. No
oh
thing.
no, no,
Yeah.
no, no.
But there's movies like The Room, which is not the weird one, but the 2019 or something, like the French version, the French one. That's a very good. What's about they go into a room and it gives you whatever you want. It's kind of the
Mhm.
monkey paw where it gives you your wish, but then has bad things along with it. That was great. There's one called Creep and Creep 2. I think that's what it was called. One of the Duplass brothers, I think. Anyway, it's just about a guy who invites a guy up to the
Yes.
woods to film him, and then ends up being, weird. Stuff happens. There's some of these movies that I've just been watching lately. The Call is a Korean one that I just watched, and of course, there's lots of good Korean, like The Host and some
Oh
other
yeah,
ones.
the host. My goodness.
I've been watching a lot of these and getting inspiration. Like I'll just be watching something, and then an idea will pop up into my head. Like The Call. If you haven't seen this one, I love it. It's on Netflix right now. I think it just came out recently too. And it's basically it's kind of the lake house but horror. So like the two women have a phone and they're talking over 30 years difference. But then one finds out she might be able to save the other one's dad's life who died 30 years before or something. And
Ooh.
then things happen where it starts getting dark and you're like, oh shit. So like that kind of stuff, it totally gave me an inspiration for a story I was working on where it's not a rip off at all, but it made me go click. Oh, that's what has to happen right here. Of course, she needs to be
Mhm.
thinking this is happening, but really it's not. And so I think it's a lot of the times that like if I try to read something that's too similar, it's not going to give me ideas. It's just going to make me go, ooh, this sucks, or oh, why didn't I do mine like that? You know what I mean? But if
Mhm.
it's different, if it's something that's kind of out there and making you go, whoa, what is this? It's outside of my bubble. Then that's what gives me a lot of inspiration and ideas.
That is, yeah. I agree with the whole, like, you can't really look to what's being done in your genre for
Mm,
inspiration because it's too easy to just like compare yourself and be like, well, it's
yeah,
either really, it is like what you said, it's either really bad and you would never do that, or it's good, but then you don't want to go copy that
yeah,
because it's already like somebody's already looking to that writer for that specific thing. And then it's like, why would they, why do they want to read a copycat? Like, I don't even want to read a copycat of some stuff when I see authors that I follow trying to do new things. And I'm like, no, 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 that's not what you do. Don't do what that person's
never
doing.
gonna be as good. It's never going to be as interesting because it doesn't
No.
come from the place of excitement and passion that our stories should come from. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I think it's important to know what's going on in your genre. So whether that's just looking at what's being published or being in a Facebook group where people are talking about it and all that, because you want to make sure you're not just doing the same thing everybody else is doing. Like, oh, I have this great idea. Oh, but 10 people just released the same book. It's kind of,
Yes.
you can still do it and you might do it amazingly if it's really inspiring to you and go for it. Why not? Like there were one or two other superhero books in this genre before mine came out, but I tried reading both of them and was pretty not interested. So, I read like 3 chapters and I was like, it's not my thing. And so
Yeah.
that's one reason that I felt inspired to do my own thing because I was like, well, if they're not doing something that I love, then there's probably a reader out there who would want to read what I love. So why don't I put that out into the world? But if it's the exact same concept, like I've actually seen one or two books come out, maybe 3 or 4 since mine because it did well. It hit like 47 on the Amazon store, entire store. Not like in a genre or something and that was awesome. But then you get the copycats, and so I've definitely seen some that are almost the exact
Yes.
same story, like where it's like a guy goes off to a space station and gets the powers by sleeping with women, and you're like, wait, but that's my story.
Yeah. I
but,
mean, it is kind of flattering in a way because it's like, yeah, they consider it to be like, oh yeah, that's success. That's what's a big deal. But it's like, really, I mean, the whole point of being creative is running whatever it is through your own like sensibilities. So, and that's what you did with your books that you're doing. So you looked at what was there and you were like, pick and choose what I want. So that's where the creative fun part comes in.
Well, there's like the Quentin Tarantino thing, right, where he gets a lot of inspiration and pays homage, maybe, or
Oh
kind of
yeah.
copies certain scenes or whatever. I think there's ways to do that, that are like you liked that aspect of like going to another world. Well, isekai is a whole genre, right, where that
Mhm.
happens. So that's not stealing. Or maybe it was the first time, but then it became not
Yeah.
stealing because everybody was doing it.
Oh yeah.
And maybe you want to do a dance move the same way. Whatever, that's cool.
Yeah.
Not judging you, Quentin. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this next question, which kind of is like jumping off of what we were just talking about. Out of your, I mean, you have, I'm sure, plenty of plot in your series and your multiple spin-off series. But do you have one maybe favorite plot line that came to you in a flash of inspiration, or do you have like a twist that wouldn't be too big of a spoiler that you would want to say, yeah, this is like one that I'm like particularly proud of that I put in my stuff?
There's a few. I mean, so there's the red dress. There's like one of Charm's fascinations becomes getting a red dress because she's lived in this space environment for so long. She starts thinking about Earth, and she's heard stories. They've heard about Earth in this other universe, in this other galaxy. I mean, not another universe. So she starts thinking, oh, I want a red dress, and so that becomes one of their quests when finally their adventures take them to Earth. And she's about to get one, and all of a sudden the whole place gets exploded and stuff. And so that's kind of like a fun plot thread that's like not a main thing, obviously, but I enjoyed it. And, it's one of those things that a lot of readers latched onto also is like, where's the red dress? And then we got to, I'm not spoiling it too much because there's a book cover that has the red dress on it now. At some point, that probably happens. But it's cool to see how it happens and like watching her and her reaction to finally obtaining it and all that stuff. And it's just such a simple, small thing. Like a lot of readers, a lot of authors put food or drink as like the thing that their characters latch onto. So I have like a thing like that with a carrot cake, but then you find out it's not carrot cake, it's more the frosting of the carrot cake. And so it's just like little small details that become like a little plot threads and how they're used in the story. But then on the bigger side of that, the crossovers, that's always excited me, like, because I don't ever force the crossovers. It's more just I'm writing, and all of a sudden I'm like, ooh, the crossover has begun. And that's exciting. Like with the Abaddon stuff, and they go into the Earth places, the Planet Kill Abaddon crossover stuff. That just really excites me because I've been writing these other characters, and now they're going to be part of this book, and they're going to be going on an adventure in this way. Or even if they don't go on an adventure together, they reveal some kind of plot thread that you didn't know about the characters you have been interacting with. And so, yeah, that's been my main excitement. If anything, I think I get critiqued by this genre. It's like sometimes I don't have enough sexy scenes in the books. I'm really just writing the story, and if they happen to do that stuff, they happen to do that stuff. But it's in my mind, I'm never forcing it. It's just if it happens. So there's been a couple of books where maybe it only happens 2 or 3 times in the whole book, and then the readers are like, "But that's what I want."
Yeah,
I get complimented the most on by these readers also that it's plot based or character and plot based versus just sexual intercourse based, because I'm not writing erotica. And if I get readers from outside the genre, of course, the opposite criticism is true.
Yes. Oh boy.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's no quota really, but in their heads there is.
Yeah, it depends on the reader. Like I definitely have some readers who are more interested in following the plot and the characters, and some who are more interested in the other stuff. And so it's always nice when there's a happy balance, but definitely always hard to please both sides.
Oh yes, I would imagine. It's like, oh, this one is not on my list, but asking because of that is when you pull the trigger to publish a new installment, is there like a fear that it's like hopefully it goes over well, or because I mean the people that publish random genres all over the place have that, but it's like I feel like for a genre where you're expected to have like a cool superhero plot, but then also have like crazy steamy scenes every once in a while, it's like that must be like double anxiety when you put it out.
Yeah, I guess. One thing that's weird is I feel like my best books don't necessarily sell, and my worst ones don't necessarily not sell. And there's just like this weird, I've never understood it. Like my longest book yet under this name, or at all, I think, is His Dark Nights, and it did a good Kickstarter for it. It raised like over $10,000 on Kickstarter, and has an awesome narrator, and I think it's just great in every way. But it didn't really sell that well. But all the reviews are good. Everybody loves it.
Mhm.
So I'm confused. So I'm more worried. I don't think I worry so much about is the story good or is the this and this balanced well. I just enjoy writing it and know that my main readers are going to like it. I'm more just worried about is it going to catch on to a larger readership and actually make me money to pay rent. That's what, because the other part I think is already there. Like they're going to like it. I hope. I mean, I don't see why they wouldn't. If I'm having fun writing it, if I sold out and write something that I didn't care about, then I guess I might worry more because it'd be like, why did I do that? No, did I make a mistake? I don't think I'm ever making a mistake as long as I'm writing something I love and am passionate about. It's more just can I pay rent or not?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Usually the answer is yes. So far, it's always been yes. But there has been, especially during COVID, a few months where it's kind of like question mark.
Yeah. Hopefully this goes well. Not afraid, but like.
Yeah. Yeah, it's gotten there a couple times now, and I think the genre has changed a little bit. I think certain people have kind of dominated the genre with putting out a book a week. There's been a lot of ghostwriters hired, which and used under these names, and yeah, that's all. Yeah. So the point is that people who want to be original and unique aren't able to, and so I'm kind of. My readers might be annoyed if they hear me say this, but to be able to make sure I'm paying rent, I'm moving more to like one book every 2 or 3 months, probably, versus I was like really pushing to get like a book out every month. But now because it's a little less reliable. I still love the genre and love writing the books, and I'm still going to do them, of course. But I want to make sure that I'm trying new things in between, so that I can make sure I'm still able to pay the bills. And if none of those pays off, eventually I'm just going to have to, I don't know, go serve Baskin Robbins or something.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong in diversifying your portfolio, and I feel like there's a lot of people that do that. They just don't announce that they're doing it because like I feel like you're in a unique, well, maybe you're not, I don't know, maybe you're in a unique spot where you have sort of, it's not a secret that you have a pen name or that you also write under your real name. But there are people that are like, yeah, you look at the main name and it's like, I got 3 books out, but then behind the scenes they've got like 10 pen names, and it's like, oh, of course, yeah, you're not afraid. You can do whatever you want. Like,
yeah. No, I'm fairly open with all these things, and I'm doing the video game work and the screenplay stuff. So hopefully that all, pays off too in big ways. What I'd love to be in a situation, all of us would love to be in the situation, of course, where I could just be like, I don't care. I'm just going to write and have fun. And then I'd be probably busting out a book every 2 weeks, just not thinking about it anymore. Like so much of that brain space is occupied by the,
oh yeah. It's like performance anxiety for authors.
Like once or twice where a book does better than I expected, and so the next one is just that much harder to write because you start thinking about, oh, got to make sure it's as good, and I hate that. So sometimes I just take a step away. That's another reason I'm kind of doing the more 2 to 3 months thing, is I just want to take time to step away in between and make sure that I'm always just approaching it when I feel inspired, instead of like before I would sit down and even if I'm not totally inspired that day, I would just, words on the page. But now what I'm doing is if I'm not inspired that day, I pull up something else like a screenplay and just start writing in the screenplay. I have a few novels that I'm adapting into screenplays. So I don't know if they're ever going to sell, but sometimes you just got to have some way to creatively feed the beast. And then I find myself pretty much never getting depressed in that method because you're never letting yourself. You're always just letting the creative juices flow. And once those creative juices are flowing in me, I'm just in this like, I'm high as a kite mode.
Oh yes. Yeah. It's like that's
off of the creative juices, not anything else.
The chemical reaction of like, yeah, I just sat down and I wrote, like, whether it's a screenplay or whatever, it's like, yes, it's like it's exercising a different part of your brain that isn't done very often. So it's like, yeah, you're in the flow. It's like you're on top of the world when you're done.
Yeah. You feel like you accomplished something, you found some new thing about a character that you didn't know before, or had some cool scene where like it just blew you away. And it's like watching a great movie, like it's hard to find great movies all the time, right? Like sometimes you find them and you're just like, yes, like Taxi Driver, the Taxi Driver, a Korean movie with the same lead actor as Parasite and some of these other, and the host. I watched that movie and I'm just like, oh yes, it did it. It made everything happen as it's supposed to. And when you're writing, for me anyway, like that actually happens quite often versus movies and these things and books. You're kind of just always hoping to find it. You're just hoping that this movie is going to do it to you. But when you're writing, you can just make it happen, and that's fun.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of continuing to write and continuing to create, do you have a future book coming out in the near future or a few months from now that you want to sort of like highlight and get the word out and maybe give sort of like a teaser of what readers can expect to find within?
So in theory, I have Monster Girls book 5 coming out. So I did a series. The first one's called Monster Girl in the Closet, or My Closet, Monster Girl in My Closet, I think. The second one's Monster Girl Under the Bed, and then so it keeps going. It's called Master of the Monsterverse, and so the 5th book of that should be coming soon, and it's exciting. Book 3 this is one of those situations too, where like book 1 and 2 did really well, and then book 3 came out and it got great reviews, and it's the longest by far, and it's amazing. It's probably one of my favorite stories I've ever written because a lot of it takes place in Japan, and I just love Japan, so you can see the passion flow out onto the page. But it didn't sell; like just not enough people picked it up. So anyway, one of those things where then I wrote book 4, and then now I'm writing book 5, and hopefully all that passion stays there. But I took a little bit of time in between because of that, hit in the happiness department when the book didn't really sell. And then book 4, of course, didn't really sell either because you rarely have a next book sell well when the one before it didn't. Yeah. So anyway, book 5 though is going to come. I might see if I finish the series there because of the lack of interest, perhaps, if that's what it is. But if it's just a delayed effect and people are going to buy it and read it and everybody loves it, then I'll probably keep going because I definitely have the story there and the characters I'm loving. They're fun. And then related to this anthology, the short story that's from the son of Threed's point of view, that's kind of a kickoff for my big planned book that I've been talking about for a while that I kind of wanted to coordinate with the board game. So I'm hoping that board game thing comes together sooner than later. Yeah, because it's the spinoff of all the books. All the books.
Oh, it's like the spin-off to rule them all.
Yes, exactly. And it's basically, it's not, I don't think it's spoiling. Again, cover your ears if you don't want to hear, but most of you guys who followed me already know, and those who don't will forget by the time you get there because there's a lot of books to read between it. And you could pick it up as a new book all by itself because the main idea is we're in a new universe, new galaxy, whatever. They've just crossed over. It's kind of a new dimension, I guess I'm saying. So they just crossed over, and it's all the characters have teamed up and are figuring out how to cross over into this other place where they were sending bad guys to our place to invade, to our universe to invade. And so we've just gone over now, and we're going to find whole new worlds, and it's going to be the ex-heroes, ex-gods, psycho bitches, others that I won't say because of spoiler reasons, teaming up to go kick ass. And it's supposedly, my plan is to do multi-POV Game of Thrones-ish style. Maybe not too many point of views if I can help it so you don't get confused, or not at first, kind of bring them in. And probably not kill off as many characters as maybe those books do.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's that one's planned, but it's one of these ones that I'm not diving into until I have other things in line. And also I wanted to finish up the Monsters series first because I'm having a lot of fun with that. So like I said, trying to go with what's fun. But on the Sloan side, I've been partnering with this guy at Disney, and he's awesome, and we've been making this really fun story that's kind of a sci-fi with robots and bounty hunters and things called cyber mercs and all kinds of badassery. So that will probably be the next book that releases under any of my stuff. And we are pretty close to finishing it. I think like this week we'll have it done on the writing stage. And basically I wrote the first draft, and he's going through and just making everything better because he has more attention to detail. I've noticed I think one of my weaknesses is writing is like I love to tell the story and do the character and all that stuff. But when it comes to like describing every detail about the weapons, and he's not going into every detail, of course, but getting more into that kind of world building side of it, I kind of get lazy. What I'll often do is I'll put 3 ampersands or I'll do 3 pound signs, and then I'll do a search for those after the fact and come back and then just like do some research and fill in the blanks because it kind of bores me. But so in this case, I'm like, instead of doing that, I partnered with a guy who we outlined together, and then he's going to go do that part of it for me, which is kind of cool. So we'll see how that goes. I'm hoping that's before. Let's see, we're in February. I'm hoping that's like April. Let's plan on April. And we have cool things with that too, because he's also an artist and knows a lot of artists. And so we're planning on doing like this big art campaign around it where we get people excited with awesome images.
That sounds excellent.
Fingers crossed.
So there's no shortage of stuff for anybody out there that's waiting for more. There's stuff coming soon.
Yeah.
Keep your eyes open.
And there's a lot of books already out there. So, I'm sure there are people who haven't read them all. I would say if you want to know what's going on, because even the monster books tie into two of my other series, one very obviously and the other one about to be obviously. And so in book 5, and probably toward the end of book 5, but that's why I want to do book 6, because then it'll really start getting fun. Yeah, so if you haven't read them all, I'd recommend you read them all. And also reviews are nice, like that's another thing. Like the book's not selling, but if it gets up to like a certain number of reviews, then you're like, well, people loved it anyway, I'm going to write the next book. If it's hanging out at like 30 reviews, then it's kind of like, meh.
Yeah, if you're somebody out there that is a reader, that, and specifically this genre, I mean, everybody could use reviews. It's like the easiest way, besides reaching out email wise or social media wise to your favorite indie writer and just being like, hey, I want to see more. Like, because really, like, if the reviews aren't there and the sales aren't there, even if you love it, it's just not going to continue. I mean, there have been big movies that haven't gotten sequels because nobody came out to see it. So
it's a financing thing too here, right? Like, because like basically every book I release, I'm taking on credit card debt to release. So if the book doesn't at least make the credit card debt back, then I'm screwed. If it doesn't make a little bit more than that, then I'm still screwed. So, yeah, I mean, when you're living full time, that's an advantage, I had before when I was like 5 years ago when I had a day job and I was doing this on the side. The disadvantage is you're staying up till 2 a.m. trying to get things done and you're freaking out and getting no sleep and it's unhealthy.
Oh, yeah.
But the advantage is knowing that you don't have to worry about it. So you could kind of just do whatever you want. And if the book flops, you just did a fun passion project. I'm kind of trying to do like I was saying, like one passion project in between the other ones, just like a fun little thing that like, if it does well, it does well. But, we kind of have to think about our livelihood. Otherwise, we're idiots.
Oh, yeah.
If we're idiots, we wouldn't go write books. So
it's a business. It is creative, but it is still a business. So, So give us, some of the social proof that you enjoyed it. Just leave a star. Right now, you don't even have to write anything. You could leave stars. I believe Amazon started rolling that out.
Yeah.
Just click the stars when you get to the end of the book. And it's no big deal. So I have another question for you about your couple of series that all intertwine together. Do you have a starting point that you would recommend if somebody was brand new and they haven't read any of them? Where should they begin?
Yeah, Super X Heroes 1 is definitely the place to go. There are books chronologically that come before that, but I don't think they're the right ones to go with. For example, Charm Skull Outcasts is chronologically before that because it's a prequel. But if you read it before books 1 through 4, you're going to be, I don't know, it's spoiled, I guess. Like it's not going to be as fun because the book is written to be read after those. So it's like, now you found out this little bit about her. Do you want to know more? Yeah. So Super X Heroes 1 is a good place to start. You could just as easily start at X Gods 1. Especially if you like certain kind of heroes more. That's more of like the badass Marine who doesn't take any shit versus the X Heroes guy is more like an everyday dude. So if you're more into the alpha male type, then it can be preference and it doesn't matter that much because they take place at the same time, side to side, and they're supposed to be read kind of back and forth. But yeah, and if you're more into fantasy and stuff too, it's the same idea. Like His Dark Knights relates to other stories, but it's very much a standalone 2-book series. Same thing with other series, so, but I think that X Heroes 1 is my most fun. I've re-listened to the audiobook a few times just because when you hear the narrators doing it, it's almost like some book that you didn't even write. It's just like they're and that's fun. Like anybody who criticizes that book or tries to say that it's sloppily written or anything like that, I think you're stupid. It's a good book.
Yes. It's such a weird phenomenon. Even rereading, like I put something away for like a month or two to give it some space, and when I came back, I was like, did I actually write this, or like, am I crazy? Like, but no, that's totally how it is, and I can only imagine it's even crazier hearing somebody like perform your work.
Especially when it's like, they did an amazing job. Yeah, the sound booth theater, sound burlesque guys and gals read that one, so you have like two females doing the female voices and 2 guys doing the different guy voices and narration, and it just comes together perfectly. And I'm to be not as conceited. There are some books that I'll read and I'm like, ooh, cringe! Why did I use that word there? Or stupid little things too. Like maybe I wrote some of Lost Pirates like 3 or 4 years ago, and then I wrote more of it more recently. And so even in the editing, like things will slip through. We're like like the guy pees himself at one point, and nowadays I just don't like that in books. And so when I listen to that part of it, I'm like, oh, come on.
Why did I do that? My sensibilities have changed.
Yeah, so that happens. But
crazy.
yeah.
Well, so there you have it. If you're looking for a place to start, go for that first book and check out the audio if you're somebody who is wanting to listen to something fun and exciting.
Yeah. Or the new short story that's going to be in the anthology.
Yes.
March?
The anthology will be out. By the time this comes out, it will be out. So you will have it readily available. Go grab it.
There you go. Awesome.
I've got one more question before I have you tell us where we can find your stuff and you and all that jazz. But is there anything that I haven't touched upon that you would like to throw out there into the world?
No, I don't think so. I have some stuff on the newsletter, actually. I guess I'll say that. I have a newsletter, and if you want to subscribe to that, it's probably on my Facebook page or something, and in my books and all that, the link to it. So, and I give away some stories with that. I think Charm School Outcast, Super Zex, Succubus, and one other book are free when you sign up to the newsletter. So that's always fun. I don't know if I should do that. Like it seems like it's not, newsletters don't really work that great anymore anyway. So what's the point? But if you want to hear from me, I do send out the newsletters every once in a while. So that's fun. Facebook groups too.
Yeah, I feel like the newsletters, as with anything with indie publishing, for any of the listeners out there, like we spend so much time crafting and perfecting different things that are supposed to be useful to us, and then eventually once we master them, they're no longer useful anymore, and we end up learning something totally brand new. So if you haven't signed up for the newsletter, I would say do it, because not everybody is. Everyone's like doing the like decluttering of their inboxes, but like I mean, you get free stories. So,
and when I do a news, like another Kickstarter, if I do the one again, that's how I'll tell people that in the Facebook group, and that's the only way to do signed books for me, because I don't really like doing signed books. I hate it, actually. It's just I love making people happy, but like I just get such anxiety for some reason. I don't know why. Like going to the post office, I think it just pisses me off. Like, it must be email days. Why do I have to go somewhere and do something? Maybe that's it. I don't know. People waiting in lines. I don't know. Anyway, so if people want to get signed books, Kickstarter is the way to do it. I'm not planning on any new Kickstarters, but for the board game, when that happens, and I'm still planning on it happening, that'll be the big Kickstarter where I'm like, I need this to go huge because it's super expensive to make a board game with all the art.
I can imagine.
So when that happens, I'll to sign some books, I guess.
Like you wouldn't think so with the amount of board games that are coming out, but my goodness, like
they get funded though. Like I don't know if mine will, because I've been told that adult content stuff does not, and the game is not going to be exactly adult content, but it's based on a book that is adult content. So I'm wondering, but yeah, I mean, some of these get, like the small ones get like 60,000, and then some of the big ones get millions, and you're just like, what? It's pretty amazing. So if mine made even half of that, what's that?
Yeah. I said the fallback can be, if you can't fund a board game, just make it into a card game. I know a bunch of people.
Yeah, well, it started as a card game, and some people kept encouraging me to go the board game route instead. So I kind of had a cool idea for something similar to Exploding Kittens, but more this stuff, and so it still kind of plays in. And then I have a new idea for Planet Kill too. That's going to be more similar to my original idea. So I'm thinking about doing the board game first, and then as long as that succeeds and I'm not like homeless, then trying to do the game. It's
definitely
right, man. There's a Call of Duty video game job that I just saw, and something I'm like considering these kind of things too. Like, it would be kind of nice to have a steady income that still makes me grow as a writer. I'm torn. I'm debating. I love the fans, and I love interacting with fans, and I'd hate to lose that, even if, like, at that point, what would happen, right? If I'm working full time again, and a lot of video game jobs make you crunch, and so maybe I'd get a book out every 6 months or something. Ugh.
Yeah, it's like pros and cons. So, oh boy.
But it'd be nice to not have to worry all the time either. Yeah.
Say, just like do that after, like, you wrap up like 2 of your series, and it's satisfying.
Yeah, I'm getting a percentage on though. So movies, sometimes don't make any money at all, but sometimes they make a lot of money. So I'm kind of like, if even one of them takes off, then I could just be like, I'm set. I'm
Oh
writing
yeah.
books that I have planned and just having fun and not giving a crap. Yeah.
Yeah, and screenwriting is not as involved as doing a full novel. I feel like it has its own challenges because
Yeah.
I've dabbled in it,
Technically more
but
involved, I feel like. More technical. Like you have
it
to
is
really
tech.
make sure all the little pieces align. It's more like playing with a puzzle versus, I don't know, a big painting with finger paints. A novel's a finger
Yeah,
paint.
yeah,
This cool color goes here, and yeah.
yeah. You're always layering stuff, but for a screenplay, it's like stripped down. It's like really, it's the story told like through like a weird pinhole of like your every conversation has to mean something,
That's
every action has to do something and move it forward, so it's like a different set of skills, but
You're
especially
right.
when you're
For a story versus an actual story. So, because you have to have all of your, so like you don't have to spend all the time,
yeah,
going into all the details about the grain of the wood on the desk and how that made him feel bad about his childhood and that,
yeah, when it gets made somebody else will design all the visuals and they'll take care of the costumes.
So in that sense, it's fun. Like, yeah, some screenplays have taken me like 6 months to do, and some have taken me like 4 days to do. It just like depends. Yeah.
Mhm. Absolutely. Well, I will say, like, seriously, best of luck with all of the projects because
Thanks.
as somebody else who is like always, I feel like I'm always doing a zillion things. Like, at least if I then it's like, yes, good. So,
Yeah. It's hard to know which ones to
uh,
say no to and all that stuff too. That's always the fun part. I've actually gotten better at it, but it's tough. Yeah.
yes.
Because you're always wondering, but what if that's the one that takes off?
Yeah, because you never know.
Yeah.
And but one day when it's like the one that did take off, you watch it'll be just like the books where it's like the one that you thought this is not going to go anywhere, and then that'll be the one that's like, well, okay, like
I was just telling people about that. I did a screenplay adaptation of my literary novel because I'm going to enter that into Sundance and some other Nickel, like the kind of places that seem to like more of that style of stuff. And in my mind, I'm like, I'm just doing this because of whatever. I just want something to enter in there that feels more like that. And so, yeah, I was telling somebody exactly like that. It is going nowhere. And then in my back of my mind, I was like, but those are the ones that take off. The ones that you think are going nowhere. So, but now I think it's going somewhere.
yes.
So now it's not going to go anywhere. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, the trials and tribulations of the creative brain. We have to like trick ourselves.
Just wait.
Goodness.
Yeah, right. What's the quote from Vincini? I don't know. Truly, you have a dizzying intellect, and I'm not saying I have a dizzying intellect, but I'm definitely dizzying myself sometimes. Yeah.
Yes. Well, where can readers find your books, and where can they find you online if you want to be found?
Sure. I think you froze for a second though, so hopefully you can hear me. Still there? Okay. Yes. So I'm on Amazon, of course. Just search Jamie Hawke on Amazon or Super X Heroes. They'll be there. Ignore the sponsored books. Go to my books. Yeah. Facebook group. I have a Facebook group called something like Jamie Hawke's Super Awesome Secret Group for Readers or something or other. I don't know. I was inspired by the whatever the super small museum thing, whatever it was in Zoolander.
Oh yes, yes.
Totally different, but it's similar inspiration. I don't think I have it. Oh, I do have a Twitter account. It's Jamie Hawke Books, maybe, or Jamie Hawke Author, one of the two. I think it's Jamie Hawke Books on Twitter, but I don't really use it too much. I kind of just go on there sometimes to see what's happening in the world. Yeah, so mostly just the Facebook group. Like there, I'm very active and very talkative. If people have questions, hop on, say hi. I love to chat. I love to get happy. Lately, it's not as much of a problem, but there was like a 6-month window where I was just like, and so like all my joy came from readers coming around and being like, dude, I love you. You're so amazing. And I'd smile for a day or two and then get depressed again. But I figured out how to get out of that slump. I just don't look at book sales anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's the key.
It's helpful. There's the trick.
Yeah.
Don't look at the sales numbers, please.
Yeah, because even if you're doing well, and then it's annoying too because you go and complain to somebody and they're like, dude, you're selling like 1,000 more books than I am. And you're like, but it's not as good as last month or something stupid, So it's better just to not look and like just have fun with it and, pay attention to your bank account so you know if you're going broke or not, but don't waste time with all that. Yeah. Yeah,
success is what you make of it. Like it really is like a moving target. So that's good advice.
Yeah. And like you said, on the reviews or in the Facebook group, if I hear people chatting, at least I know I'm making my readers happy, and that's what should be important. And
Absolutely. Well, everybody out there listening, you know where to go. Sign up for the newsletter and reach out, leave a couple stars. Those are all
Thank
the
you.
things that we ask for. But I just want to thank you before I wrap it up. I just want to thank you again for being on. And it's always a pleasure. It was really exciting to chat all the stuff. And, I ask questions and I get awesome answers. So, yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, and everybody read that anthology because it's going to be game changing.
Yes, it's out there and it has a good cover. It has a good bunch of stories. So, the superhero anthology, the name, because I keep forgetting it and I keep mixing it up, it's called Beneath the Mask. So if you're on Amazon browsing, go find it. It's like $1. Go get it. But I will I will wrap this one up. As always, thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate all of you, whether you are new or old to the podcast, and I will see you all next time.